Okay, so we're recording. Hopefully you can hear me. Here is the organ in Kresge. Alright, so as you can see, we've got 3 manuals on this organ. This bottom manual has got a really wonderful action. This bottom manual is the Grand org. Okay. This middle one is the Récit, and then the top one is the Echo. And then on either side you can see the stops. These 2 rows of stops are both Grand org stops. So if I pull these stops, just pull a few random ones, the bottom keyboard, those stops will play there and not anywhere else. Okay? So the Grand org is over here, and you can see it's 2 rows of stops. The Echo is also up here. It's 1 row of stops. It's a smaller division. And it's probably farther away. I don't know where these pipes are, honestly. Nope, it's actually right behind me. Okay? That's the Echo division. And then the Récit is up here. So that'll be on the middle keyboard. And then more of the Récit, and then the pedal is down here. And there's the pedal board, of course. It goes down to C, and that would be you would write that as a C below the bass clef staff. And it's got 2.5 almost octaves of pedal. You don't notate things differently if you're using an 8-foot versus a 16-foot stop. You don't write those differently. You just write the 16-foot. Here's your middle C, and on every keyboard you get 2 octaves below middle C, 2, almost 3 octaves above middle C. So you get about 4, more than a half octaves. Okay. Let me just also show you some of these. You can see these buttons here underneath the keyboard. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. These are presets, so you'll see when I push these, different stops come out. So you can preset a selection of stops, and then whenever you press a button, they quickly change. This is the clear button, so you can clear all your stops with that button. And then these buttons over here are presets, but for only the division they're under. So these 4 for this keyboard, these 4 for that keyboard, these 4 for that keyboard. What else can I show you? Let's take a look at the pedal board. I don't have my organ shoes on today. I couldn't find them. Let me see if I can. There we go. So you can see there's also a bunch of foot pedals here. And these are the same idea. These are presets. So you can do that with your feet if it's more convenient. Clear. There's also some couplers that says Echo to Récit. And if I press that, and then I go to the Echo, I put on some stops. So I've got my Echo to Récit. So these are on the Echo, that's the top selection. They'll also be coupled to the Récit. So I can play those on here. So you can combine stops from different groupings. So I can have all my Echo stops and all my Récit stops being played on this keyboard. And you'll see it actually physically moves, right, like a ghost. And we'll clear. So Récit, Echo to Récit is an option. Sorry. It's hard to film down here. There's also Récit to Grand org, right there. also a hand stop for that one. So when I press the foot pedal, changes that. Grondorg to pedal. That's a super useful one to add whatever you have on the Grondorg also to the pedal. Resi to pedal. Some more presets, and then tutti, which turns on all the stops on the organ, which is way too loud. Right? This is a loud instrument, so you have to be delicate with it. Tutti is, you know, aggravatingly loud, so I would not advise using it. Okay. Oh, I also forgot to talk about these. These are expression pedals, and you can move them up and down like that. This one is for the echo, and this one's for the resi. So that means all the pipes that go along with the resi and all the pipes that go along with the echo are in little boxes. They're in cabinets with shutters on them. In fact, can we see them? Oh, we can. So here. So the echo is right here. So when I move that foot pedal, you can see these shutters open and close, and that allows you to do dynamics. So let me let's see. So we'll put on some stops on the echo. Let's put this 8-foot Doosan. That's when they're closed. Right? You have to be a little careful with that, right? It's a physical mechanism, so all of this stuff, this keyboard has trackers in it, so it's all fairly delicate, and you can't be too rough with stuff. Organs break, like, you know, when the wind blows. So those are ways that with resi stops. Let me do it with the resi. So here's an example of some string stops. The voix celeste. Anytime you see celeste, that means it's slightly out of tune. You can kind of hear the beating. And then the viol de gamba is a string stop. It sounds like this. The celeste sounds like this. It's just slightly out of tune, so it creates a little whooshy whoosh together. And I can open the swell cabinet. You'll notice my hands are sort of snaking around a lot, because the minute you stop playing a pitch on the organ, it stops. So there's a lot of, you get good at these sort of sneaky little fingering changes. I'm going to now do swell to pedal with my foot. Now I can play. A little melody with my feet. I'm going to add some real bassy stops. that's like, that's what you do during communion, to waste time. Okay, so that's covered a little bit of ground. I'm going to go through more stop sounds. Don't you worry. Let me just talk about pedaling. So these shoes aren't perfect for it. Organ shoes have more of a heel, so it's easier to do heel-toe stuff. But you can work toe-heel, toe-heel. Let me put on a... This is a flat pedal board, which some are curved, which I'm more used to, so this is a little tricky for me. But there's a lot of toe, stuff going on. Somebody asked to hear a Alberti bass. Alright, so that's about as fast as I'd feel comfortable doing it. And notice I'm looking at my feet right now because I'm not doing anything with my hands. If I had to do this without looking, I'd get less accurate. But you know, you work on these things. These shoes are a little too big. You can do harmonic stuff. Doing counterpoint is very doable. Having more than one pitch at a time is possible but tough with one foot. Okay, pretty tough. And it's easier to do between a white key and a black key for obvious reasons. So pretty much one note per foot at a time. The keyboard is about the same as a piano keyboard. It's a little smaller. And I've got the reach of about only a ninth these days. Cool. I'm going to go through some stops with you. Let's just start on the pedals because we're there. Yeah, so this is just a coupler and another coupler. So this just brings in stuff from the Kresge of the groundwork. Then we have montre. Sort of a generic fuzzy 16-foot. Subasa. This is a flute. Very quiet. Very woofy, but it has that nice low rumble thing. 8-foot mantra. It's probably the same set of pipes as the 16. Fairly generic. And then an 8-foot flute, a bourdon. That has a little chiff. And then a 4-foot prestante. That's another principal stop. Very clear. A furniture stop. So that's got a, this one shoots a bunch of chairs and end tables out of the balcony. No. Anything with a Roman numeral means it's a collection of pipes. And it has that really ringy, doesn't quite sound like one distinct pitch because it's not. And it's almost always in sort of a traditional setting used in conjunction with, say, a 4-foot and an 8-foot and a 16-foot. And so you get a bunch of the fundamental plus some of these sort of overtone type things. And that's kind of what you'd set. I'd probably even add these because they just kind of fill in the sound a little if I was playing Bach. that's that kind of classic organ sound. These are all principal stops. And it's a classic thing for like Baroque music to have an 8, a 4, if we were on a keyboard, maybe a 2 as well, and then a mixture to add all that ringy, clangy thing. Then we have 3 extra pedal stops up here, which are a clarion, which is a reed, 4-foot. Very nice, not overly loud trumpet. We have a trumpet allemande. It's okay. And then a 16-foot trombone. These are slow to speak. Kind of nice in the upper range. You know, so those are, you might pair those with something a little softer like these fluty stops to just add a little extra, take the edge off a little. Maybe even a foundation stop, principal stop. So that's the pedal. So that's all that's on the pedal. It's not a ton, but of course you can couple anything else to the pedal. Let's now talk about the swell, because we're over here. Let's start with the reed stops, which are in a collection here. We've got an oboe, a trumpet, and a bassoon. The oboe is a really useful solo stop. Good for melodies. Very sweet reed stop. There's also a tremulant on this organ. Let's see if that one works. Hear that tremolo? You can add that to see, there's a tremulant. You can add that to a melody. So that's the oboe. The trumpet. Speaks a little stronger, and then the bassoon. Okay, so those are the 3 sort of solo reed stops on the récit. I always want to call it a swell because that's like the English word for the same collection. And then up top, we've got those string stops I told you about, the voix céleste, which is slightly out of tune, and the viol de gamba, nice, mushy. You know, this is one where you can really press down a lot. You get that real nice wavy. Here's the flute. Cheminée. Very fluty, very chiffy. Hear that chip, that little poof, that little burst of air at the beginning? Then we have a prestante, which again is our sort of organ sound. That's a principal stop. Kind of the generic, a higher flute. And then a cornet that's got that Roman numeral there. So you know it's more than one stop at a time. Very unusual sounding on its own. But if we paired it with a 4-foot prestante where we get the fundamental in there, still pretty weird. Let's add a little more. Take out the strings. Then we've got a 2-foot flute, really high. Almost painfully. Though it is an interesting texture up there. It's almost like a percussive whistle or something. And of course, one thing you'll hear a lot in Messiaen is like the pairing of a really high thing with a pretty low thing. It's too loud. So you get that kind of hollow. It's a nice combination to have an 8-foot and then a 2-foot. Or even a 16-foot, if we had it, the bassoon is going to be too loud. That's the bassoon with the really high flute, 2-foot flute. And then plein jeu is a classic mixture. Again, it's kind of like that furniture. It's a kind of a brassy, really resonant. So if we were to throw all these on, we get a pretty big. And if we wanted to even add a trumpet, I might take out the strings just to have it be crisper. Okay, so that's the swell. Over in the east here, we've got the echo. First we have this Deuxième, which I think is a, yeah, it's very close to my head, of quite sort of a funny sounding reed. A lot of personality. Would be hard to pair with like a lot of other stuff. You might pair it with something generic like a prestante. That's our 4-foot principal. And maybe an 8-foot bourdon, 8-foot flute. Just to flesh it out a little. But a pretty unusual sounding, characteristic sound. Another furniture, that's our collection of stops with the Roman numeral. And here we've got a 1 1/3, a 1 3/5. These are, as you might expect, not, so here's an 8, let's see, here's a 4-foot, so here's a C. Here's a C on a 1 3/5. So it's a 1/5 above, or an octave and a 1/5, and then the 1 3/5 is a 1/3 above. If you put the 1 3/5 and the 1 1/3 and a 4 and a 2 and an 8. It sounds more like just sort of increasing those harmonics instead of sounding like separate pitches. On their own, you're just getting different pitches. If you put them together, that's those two. It sounds kind of odd. You could pair it with a single 8-foot to give a sense of where the fundamental is, and then the sort of higher harmonics. Okay. This thing is totally weird, and I don't even want to pull it because I'm afraid it won't stop. I'll pull it. So I actually don't know. Sometimes that's done with water, and I don't know if that's the case here on this instrument. But it's a nightingale. It's supposed to sound like a bird, and it's just either on or off. So you can use that. Rossignol. It's very odd. I've never seen that on an organ before. I've heard of it, but there are these weird sort of like novelty stops you sometimes see on organs, and that's one of them. Pretty funny. Sounds like somebody pushing a cart down the hallway with a squeaky wheel. All right, and finally we're to the Grand Orgue, which is the biggest collection of stops, and it's kind of the main, loudest, sort of fullest division. There's a whole bunch of stops, and we'll just go through them. Let's start from the trumpet, the French trumpet. Let's compare that to the trumpet allemand. Trumpet allemand is a little softer. Française is a little brassier, a little more of a chiff to it. We have another string. Oh, I'm sorry, that's a mantra. We've got another 8-foot. These four, kind of a little collection. It gives you that classic organ sound. A furniture, so that's a mixture stop with several pipes playing every time at once. Creates that sort of very brassy overtones. A 2, a 4, and 8. This is like what you put on when you're playing Bach. An 8, a 4, a 2, and a mixture. Kind of that classic German sound. Then we've got flutes. 16-foot flute. 8-foot flute conique. Oops. Eight-foot flute harmonique. A little sweeter. Almost in the string category. And flute à fuseau. All the flutes. And then a 2 2/3 Nazar. Do you see this called for a lot in the Messiaen? So again, this is a 2 2/3, so it's not playing an actual C when you press a C. So you would want to pair it with other things. And then there's a sort of a 2-foot that goes along with it. Also very sort of classic organ type of thing. You have some 8s, some 4s, some 2s, and then a little bit of extra overtone that gives you that kind of hymn-like sound. Tierce is another one. Right. Even more of that overtone. And if we did something, this is a 1 3/5 with a 16-foot, so they're really, really far apart. There you get a really odd. Very unusual sound, having a really low 16-foot with a 1 3/5. And sort of more of the same up top. Oh no, that's the echo, I'm sorry. Okay, so that's all the stops. And of course you can combine them in various combinations. Combine them in combinations, that's great. Let me move my computer a little here, try not to push it off the edge. Let me get both my hands going. Let me now look at some of the requests I've gotten. So stops of different categories. I hope I've covered that. Okay, someone asked explicitly for like a whole bunch of brass stops, a whole bunch of wind stops together, a whole bunch of strings, etc. So I'll start with a brass collection. So trumpet, trombone, trumpet, clarion. This is going to be loud. Trumpet française, trumpet allemand. I think that's all the trumpets. I'll open everything up. So here's the swell. That's all the brass. Strings. It's not a lot of strings. Let's see. Grand orgue, so there were specific requests here I'm going to do. So grand orgue, flute, 4-foot flute, Puzo, 4-foot flute on the grand orgue, oboe on the swell, and then a pedal 16-foot manche. There's a dead pipe there. Oh, really out of tune. So organs are also always out of tune somewhere. You just gotta live with it. Okay, so that's another combination someone asked for. Here's one with the 8-foot flute, harmonique, viol de gambe on the swell, and then 16-foot trombone. Oh, that's the wooden one. So this is a weird combination. So I've got strings here, so I'm going to use this as background. I've got this really loud trombone and the pedal, so I'm going to do melody with that. And I don't know what I'm going to do with the flute. So it's a little awkward. The trombone is a little too loud for that. I don't know how this comes across on the microphone, but trombone's a little overpowering there. I was playing a lot of the flute high so that it could kind of pop out, because the flute is fairly precise, so it can come out of a texture if it's higher. And then the strings I was kind of just using as some glue in the background. And then finally another request here, flute harmonique. Voix Celeste and Preston in the pedal. So high pedal. And you could do things like have So I'm using the expression pedal to sort of have these fade in and out a little. It's subtle, but it's a possibility. Okay. Quickly repeated arpeggiated chords in opposite directions, spaced different amounts apart. Okay, so let's just use some presets here. So here's on the swell in sort of a big creates quite a big mess. I mean, sounds good, but quite a blur. If you space them out a little more, quite effective, I think. If we use a less intense, these are all intense. We use a sort of a, this is just a couple flutes and a preston. Okay, a little more filled glass, so you can hear the individual notes a little more. The more stuff you put on, the blurrier it gets. Pedals, preston, sous-basse, and montre. This was a request. So this is the 16 and 8-foot mantra, Subas, and Prestant 4-foot. Creates a very, I think, nice, standard, middle of the road, loud enough to hear it, but not overly loud pedal registration. Alberti bass and pedal, I think I showed you that. Let me look at Katie, you sent me a little piece. Let me look at that. Just to give an idea, so here's that. I don't know how well this comes across. Just to give you an idea, so Kresge, 8-foot flute Shema. So Kresge over here, and where is it? So that's on the back keyboard. Great, has a 16-foot Borden. Where are you? Can't find anything. Oh, all the way over there. Pedal has an 8-foot trumpet, so that's going to be loud. Actually, not that loud. The Allemande is the chill one. Now, one thing is, you've written dynamics. These are not necessary unless you're on a division, the receipt or the echo, which has the expressive, the shutters. So those dynamics don't necessarily need to be there, because there's nothing I can do other than open up the box. Oops, sorry. So I think one issue you run into here is that the trumpet is just too overpowering. You also, I'm pretty sure, are not writing all the accidentals. You want like G flat and E. That's a diminished diminished third rather. I'm not sure if that's what you're going for. Having the pedal in thirds like that is doable. It's a little awkward. I certainly couldn't do that very fast, but it's okay. But the big thing here is that this trumpet is just too big. So I might, instead of using, I might add a, if you still want it to be sort of simple, maybe a 8-foot and a 4-foot to the grate. And then for the swell, I might add my strings and some 4-foot flute. So they're still distinct. This is kind of softer, strings and flute. This is a little more assertive. And then this is less loud. Let's try that. This still gets lost. Okay, so still get the swell is pretty quiet. So if you do want a quieter sort of string type of sound, you probably have to account for it by not covering up too much with the louder stops. The louder stops are the reeds. Anything that says trumpet or trombone is going to be a little louder. Clarion, louder. Fundamentals are sort of middle. These are always loud and just kind of take up a lot of space. The oboe is a quieter reed. And then the strings and the flutes are the quietest. And the swell, or the récit, I'm sorry, that has those strings. I wish I had more organ music committed to memory. I would play something for you. God, is there anything... Yeah, I don't really remember. Just trying to think of any other things I might have missed. Let me make sure I do this. A reed on top of a string on top of a brass, one at a time. So, here's a reed, oboe, with a string. String has a softening effect. Here's just this reed again. Speaks very clearly. Adding the string mushes it up a little. And then a flute. Couple flutes. Higher flute. Take away the reed. This is just flutes and string. Take away the string. Okay, so in general the string can be used as a way of mushing up, adding texture. Same with the flutes to some degree, though they can be used on their own to create a very sort of choppy, fluty, couple of high flutes there. And then the principal stops are the ones that are a little more organy. Oh, I wish I remembered that. That'd be a good one. Some French music right there. So this is the strings and a couple of soft flutes. With expression dynamics. Adding in a little pedal, just string and flute pedal. Okay. Yeah, okay, I think I covered a lot of ground here. Just want to make sure there's not anything else. As far as changing stops mid playing, it's very easy to move from keyboard to keyboard, so that's not a problem. Changing a lot of stops, of course, you do have to reach over and pull stuff, so you got to be sensitive to that. You can't always do that really quickly, but if you want to, and I actually, well, we'll see. The way I set up the piece we're doing is I'm I'm insisting that you have pauses. And so those are always times where stops can be pulled and changed. And also, like, remember, I can use a foot and one hand and then have my other hand free. So you can think of it that way. Cool. Okay, so I think I'll shut up now. I think that covers most everything. Let me know. I'm going to try to do another one of these, take some requests on Friday, and then for next Wednesday we'll have the pieces, and I'll record those for you at some point when I can get in here. Okay? Alright, this has been fun. Oregon, it's just like us. Take care. Where's the button?